They don't think I'm pushing my kids.
Can everybody here okay? We're sort of spread out, this room's really long and narrow. Everybody here okay? Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you being here. We have a quorum tonight. At this time, I'd like to call on Bill Dolan from Haywood County to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Oh God, our liberation and peace receive the power of your Spirit, that we may live a full union with you, ourselves, and our sisters and brothers with mental illness. Our actions and decisions lead us to overcome fear, acquire knowledge, and be advocates with compassion and enlighten truth and service. As we go forward in our community with a new sense of vision, hope, and new beginnings for the future. Amen.
Thank you, Bill. Before we consider approving the agenda, I'd like to call on Christina to introduce the new staff. Christina? All right, you're going to introduce some new staff? Yes, you were. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce, we have a new senior director that has joined Smokey, Carla Keeberts. If you'll stand up, this is Carla Keeberts. She has accepted the senior director position for customer services, which is our call center, which for the last couple months you've heard us talk about the transition and the integration with Western Highlands and Smokey. And so the Smokey Mountain Center call center that was in Waynesville has moved to 356 Biltmore Avenue, which is where Brian and I and everybody, a lot of staff are housed today. So Carla has joined us, and you know that the senior staff do attend the meeting. So we welcome Carla to Smokey Mountain Center. We wanted to introduce her tonight, let everyone know who she is. And Carla has a great amount of information and data in regard to all the calls and all the interactions that happens in the 24/7, 365 call center, which we are very excited about. It's one of the gifts that Western Highlands brought to our system. So we're excited.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, wait a minute. We have a motion by Billy Gibbons, seconded by Larry Cox. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Public comment. I don't have. We have 4 people have signed up to speak tonight. I would like to first call on Duncan Sumter. I'm not sure where, right there.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to, my name is Duncan Sumter. I'm the chair of the Smoky Mountain Network Council, and I wanted just to provide you a quick update on the council and what is going on and how it's been working. For those of you who are not aware of the council is primarily a group of providers who have been elected by their peers to represent each provider type, each region, and each disability. Included on the network council are voting members of CFAC. Pat is here and is a very strong member of that council, very important. Also CCNC and Smoky Mountain Center has voting members as well. The council was started prior to Smoky moving into the MCO arena. Brian had a vision to have a strong network council to help partner with Smoky to develop the strongest network for our shared mission as possible. And he has done a great job of getting that started, and he and Christina have supported us moving forward. The council, again, just has a shared vision of having the strongest, the best network possible in this ever-changing environment. And we've done a lot of work hand in hand. And as you know, MCOs and providers are not always going to see eye to eye, which is normal. But if we're being transparent about how decisions are being made and why they're being made, then it helps us get to the same place. Having a shared vision really helps. So it's been really good. Western Highlands is they're voting on membership to be included into the Network Council, and we hope to have those members present at our meeting next month. It's very important. They bring a lot of knowledge and depth, and all their help is welcome. We've got a lot of work to do. Share a quick confession. I was kind of born in Smoky Mountain Center professionally. In 1998, I was hired to be an outpatient clinician in Cherokee County. And I was so excited when I was going to my first day of work. And I was proud to be a part of Smoky Mountain Center, and got there. My supervisor sat me down and he said, "Duncan, got some advice for you. Whatever you do, don't make any large purchases. Whatever you do, don't purchase a house. I wouldn't even recommend a car." And I said, "Why is that?" Pete Cook, if anybody you know, Dr. Cook, and said, "Why is that?" He said, "Our system is about to change and nobody knows anything about what's going to happen." That was in 1998, and he was right. That's the best advice I ever had. And the system has been changing a ton. What hasn't changed much is the leadership from this board and from Smoky Mountain Center. And you have always been willing to take calculated risk, be ahead of the curve, and even get out and construct some of that curve. And you're doing that right now. I know there's a lot of turmoil with the board and the region and the state, but the mission is vital and important to the stability of a network and services for consumers. So I want to thank you for the work that you've done. I want to thank Brian and Christina for the leadership and the commitment to being a part of the Network Council and working together to get the best services available for consumers. And don't give up on being ahead of the curve. That's paid dividends for as long as I've been in the system. I'm sure it will in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Short.
Hello, Mary Short from Taylorsville in Alexander County and Katy. I sort of had a plan about what it was I was going to talk about, and it's all kind of got jumbled up in my head. The most important thing I want to talk about is I was in Raleigh for the Health and Human Services Oversight Committee meeting on the 8th, and actually had a chance to speak to the secretary prior to the meeting for just a few seconds. And it was sort of reassuring to get an acknowledgement from her about relative as providers needing to be a part of the system going forward, no matter what that looks like. Also at that HHS meeting, I was able to, they were there to talk about NC Tracks and NC Fast. And so I gave public comment on the 8th about Katie's Medicaid card being wrong. And I was very careful not to disrespect Alexander County and their DSS people. But Katie's Medicaid card had the wrong primary care physician on it. So I was concerned the CCNC money was going to the wrong primary care physician. And anyway, Mr. Black, who is the new head of DSS, or however it works in Raleigh, he took Katie's name and date of birth, and a new Medicaid card with the correct physician was issued on the 9th, and we got it Friday. Isn't that cool? So I had to go all the way to Raleigh. Anyway, the third thing then, on the 10th, a group was in Raleigh at Office of Administrative Hearings for a provider appeal over the relative as provider issue regarding another LME-MCO. And I believe this board has been told that providers don't have any appeal rights at Office of Administrative Hearings. And it was wonderful for the judge to explain to Tracy Hayes, the attorney for Alliance, that we do, relative as providers in general, we do have a right to appeal to Office of Administrative Hearings under 108C, and I guess that's part of 150B, whatever. But we do have right to appeal to Office of Administrative Hearings. You can check with Tracy over at Alliance. She can clarify that for you. And I still remain concerned about the waiting list for the innovations waiver. And I'm concerned about those folks and what's really happening to them. And I'm now also, after sitting in on the finance meeting, very concerned about ICFMR and the rate increase for the state facilities and what that might mean to people being removed from the state facilities. Anyway, just some IDD issues for the board to maybe be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathy, and I can't.
Yeah, my penmanship, I'm sorry. Yep, Kathy Ryder. I am a parent of three children that I adopted with special needs. I was a case manager. I am now community advocate, attend meetings with Mary. I have a comment for our new lady that there's a high risk, high cost, high dollar, however you define those category high end ones, in Spruce Pine just waiting to explode. 4 weeks on the waiting list. It will not look good in the press.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jerry Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As always, my point is service. I think I've heard executive meeting, finance committee. You can go on YouTube and you listen to all this. You look really great. You sound good. And, you know, the thing that comes to me, and I've been around here for 26 years in government, videoing and listening to political BS, okay? And you all understand that short language. And the point I'm making is this. When we come together as a board, we need to think about what we're here for. And a lot of this that I hear is a lot of political statements, politicizing this. And I think the mentally ill, the DD and substance abuse folks have been politicized enough. Everything that's come down the pipeline is taken away from them, not given to them. And I think if we're going to go anywhere to help our folks, we're going to have to quit wrangling around this table and quit pointing fingers at one another and shouting at one another and get down to talking about people. We talk about money, we can get that out of the way in a hurry because you ain't got so much. But my concern is the governor's got a plan. This plan has already been made. We don't have to worry about what it's going to be. We know what it's going to be. So it ain't going to change. These two boards coming together, the next board's coming together and make the 35 counties, it ain't going to change. We're going into this big system of Medicaid, and it's going to go national. It's going to hook up, and we're going to be a peon on the pole. But I appreciate the efforts that each one of you are doing to try to make a cohesive board and a big board and get that out of the way and let's get down to work. I deal with people on a daily basis advocating for kids in school. And let me tell you, the heart-wrenching things that I hear in what we call confidential meetings, it's a shame and a disgrace that we have to talk about everything except the needs of the people that we're serving. And most of these times in these meetings, that's what's happening until I show up. And not bragging on old Jerry, I'm just telling you, when I go in the meeting, I'm not focusing on their politics. If they ain't got enough resources, I'll look at them and I'll say, if you need resources, I'll go get it. I'll go to the county commissioners and I'll do all these other things. All this is all coming back to the local government. I don't care what's being said in this room. It's all coming back to the hands-on on our county governments, and what happens in Raleigh affects everybody. So my comment tonight to the people that wants to politicize this thing, forget that, because it's going to happen anyway. Let's get down to business for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, at this time, we'll call on Pat McGinnis to give us the Consumer and Family Advisory Committee report. Pat?
Thank you. I want to say I agree partly with what Jerry said. One of the things that I feel myself, several of my friends lately have been in the hospital. And a lot of it, and most of my friends are consumers and they're advocates, and they're across the state. They're not just in our catchment area. Some of them have been in the hospital several times lately. Some of them have been, one of them even had a stroke 2 weeks ago. And part of this, I think the reason they've ended up in the hospital is they at some point felt like somewhere they were at, they were valued and trying to commit to putting out valuable stuff. And not some of them in the past have been part of CFAX, but others are part of different boards and committees and groups throughout the state. And there seems to be an awful lot of power struggles going on, even in the consumer world. And you know, one of them got up, and I've not been doing well. I've been to the doctor 3 times in 2 weeks for some gastro stuff, and probably part of it's tied to my nerves. I'm worried about my friends, so I'm probably going to leave early tonight. But, you know, one of them got up, and she doesn't live in our catchment area, thank God, a couple of weeks ago, and somebody even hung a noose outside her bedroom window. So it really concerns me, everything that's going on in the country has really brought a lot of negative attention to mental health consumers. So, you know, people don't want them in their neighborhoods. People don't even want them in their own homes if they're already in their neighborhoods, and they're trying to run them off. An example is John's daughter, who is crippled and also has some mental issues. For 5 years, she's lived in an upstairs apartment. And Smokey's been working trying to get her. Recently, she's hooked up with some folks in a downstairs apartment. But it is my opinion that the apartment she lives in and the people living there, they would rather run her off than try to accommodate her. It's another not in my neighborhood kind of thing. And this is not, I've not got to my CFAC report yet, and I'm probably saying things I shouldn't be saying. But you know, they had one come available last week, and she got passed over again. I called them on the telephone. They didn't know who I was. And I told them I was some old lady wanting to rent an apartment, and just come on over and fill out an application. So there's a lot of things that are going on that are not healthy and that really deeply concern me. So I'm really thankful for not only this board and the staff at Smoky and our CFAC and the provider council and the providers, because in our area, for the most part, most of us that have tried to participate have been made to feel valued and that we had something to offer, or at least if we didn't offer the right things, y'all took the time to listen to what we had to say. And that means a great deal to me and I think to others. And I think when I was reading an article yesterday about seniors in the doctor's office, and it was talking about how seniors began to feel like they were no longer valued as they aged in their homes and in their communities and in their lives. And I thought, man, that's the same way I think a whole lot of my friends that are either in the hospital, just got out, or having strokes and this, that, and the other going on right now are feeling about their lives. So, you know, I'm hoping sometime in the future maybe the geriatric team and maybe the mental health team can get together and we can put something together on how to make consumers feel more valued in their homes and stuff. And it can be part of a CFAC project. But let me get to my report now. But I just want to thank all of y'all because I do feel that Smokey's done a really good job with CFAC and making us feel like we had valuable input. So it's been a big month for CFAC. All 3 of our regions met by video on October the 15th, and our new region, they observed but didn't participate because we had a company, Dave Richard, the division director, and Suzanne Thompson, the consumer empowerment team leader, came, and we were the last group. He had been going around to all the different groups, and we were the last group for him to visit. And I think it went fairly well. I was a little bit nervous, but I think it went well. I enjoyed talking with them, and I think the rest of the folks did too. We were also fortunate. We had several guests from the community at various locations, at least one provider, and I don't know their name, but they were in Silva, so I couldn't see them, but I know they were there. We had John Owen, who is one of the North Carolina Mental Health Substance Abuse and IDD Commissioners came as a guest, along with Margot Withrow. They were at our area, and there might have been other guests in other areas, but I don't really have their names. But I think that was a pretty good meeting. I think it was a success. Our next meeting will be by video, and it will be the first real consolidated meeting of the new CFAC with the new Southern Region, and it will be on November 19th. We had a meet and greet that took place October the 19th at Seasons in Flat Rock, and some of the folks from the new region really did most of the planning on this, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place. I think it went well. We hope to go back there for future meetings, maybe even a retreat, and if y'all are looking for a place to hold a meeting, you folks might want to consider that place, because it really was. It was beautiful. Our members continue to be involved on committees and cross-functional teams and the provider council. I continue to participate in the state to local CFAC call once a month, every other month, and as well as other activities in the community. I think several of our members attended the ART conference October 5th and 6th, and so several others attended the NOMA North Carolina conference that same weekend. Consumers are looking forward to the recovery conference next month. I was lucky. I won a scholarship last year. I won the door prize. Some lady sitting beside us had to leave early, and she said, anybody want this ticket? So I won a scholarship to this year's recovery conference, so I'm looking forward to going to that. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to is Paolo Del Vecchio. I don't know if any of you know him, but he's the director for the Center of Mental Health Services at SAMHSA, and I occasionally have conversations with him when I run into him somewhere, and I'm looking forward to sitting down and having a conversation with him. The last one I had was about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was about CFAC. He said he wanted to know something that was going right in our communities, and I told him about CFAC, even though it was kind of in a mess in other parts of the state, some of them, and we talked about the possibility of us being a national model. Wouldn't that be something? But anyway, that's what's going on in CFAC, and a little more than probably what I should have told you, especially now that I realize I'm on camera, but we hope y'all have a good meeting. And there's one more thing. I did notice something in the minutes that needs correcting. I may leave early, but Jenny is going to take care of that. So we just appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Jill, on the minutes, if I could just mention, under members unable to attend, it has Mike Edwards from Cole County and Mike Corporation from Cole County. So I think Mike Edwards is
God bless him. I did see that. I appreciate it.
And under voting by proxy, I think it'd be there as well.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is board directors items. This time I'd like to call Allison Luke to discuss the A under board chair issues, open bids, authorizations, policy change. I believe. Allison.
Thank you. It's not a policy change. What it is it's a request to have the board authorize individuals going forward to be able to open sealed bids on behalf of the board. In the past, my understanding is that there have been authorizations made for a specific person to open a specific sealed bid at a particular time. The statute requires, it's 143, Article 8, requires that the board, either the board opens up sealed bids or the board authorizes an individual or individuals to open sealed bids. And what we are asking in terms of trying to make things easier for the board, so I want to make sure it is very open and obvious that there be 2 ELT members who are authorized at a given time to be able to open up sealed bids, and that they have to do it in the presence of one another. And so that's what we've asked for.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we allow the Smoky Mountain Center Board of Directors to authorize 2 or more members of the Smoky Mountain Center staff, executive leadership team, in the presence of one another, to open sealed bids submitted to Smoky Mountain Center pursuant to processes required for certain public contracts under North Carolina General Statutes 143, Article 8.
discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And also, Allison, do you want to, the standing committee, is there any at this time?
We do not have, we do not have any conflicts with.
All right. Third item under Board of Directors items, Executive Committee report. The Executive Committee met earlier today, discussed a couple of things I'll just mention, which we'll be discussing some of those items later. Western Highlands representation with the board governance. We also talked about Western Highlands board members and the stipend and travel reimbursement. And we also discussed regionalization. And also talked about future board and executive committee meeting schedules. We'll talk a little bit about that later. The other members of the executive committee have anything to add? Okay. Next item, we need to have a closed session pursuant to subsection 143, 318, 11A, 3, and 6 of the General Statutes of North Carolina to consult with attorneys in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Cindy made a motion. Is there a second? Closed second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous.
Is this the same thing?
Let's get started back. We still have quite a bit to cover. Jill. Let's get started back. We still have quite a bit to cover. Our next item, and you have a handout. We have different information passed out about the Smoky Mountain Western Highlands reconstituted board item. Some of you were at a meeting that we had last Wednesday. We had about a 2-hour meeting with a good discussion about this topic. And again, go back to the 21 members, representing 23 counties. 13 of those positions were designated. 8 are other members. And the way the executive committee, when they had met on this matter and talked about it in the past, was 4 members from Western Highlands, for those would be the county managers, and 4 members would represent county commissioners. Of that 13, there was also 1 county commissioner position. The executive committee and has been meeting on this and discussed this. We talked about this today for the better part of our 2 hours. About an hour and a half of this was about it. There was a suggestion made to me earlier in the week that just the county commissioner positions are the positions that we talk about as far as if we voted on some, and just want to bring that up, that was a suggestion by one of the county managers, is that we had 8 positions that all the counties would vote on. That's just, I guess, the new information, if you will. When we had our meeting earlier, we briefly reviewed, and I'll have Michael Hill briefly review the information where we were as far as 13 members go. You can do that this time.
Sure, what you have in front of you is a copy of the draft that we had in September. Not updated it, except with a written name on the back. But there are 2 that we learned this evening that have changed on the seat back area. If you look on the front of that sheet right there in the middle, 13 positions. These are the ones that are part of that group, as well as the first 2 on the back. The recommendation from the executive committee to the board would be that Carolyn Coward, who is an attorney here at Asheville, from Jackson County, I believe, originally, and her expertise is in healthcare law. And in fact, the statute provides that it needs to be a healthcare attorney, not, your real estate attorney, your criminal law attorney, that kind of thing. It's a recommendation that, as you know, if you have looked over this sheet from the last meeting, the statute says that we have to have equal representation in the first board that's constituted between 1, 2, and 3-year terms, so that as you begin to perpetuate yourself, that you end up having to stagger terms. In our situation, that probably won't apply because, as you know, we're in the process of talking with 2 other MCO LME groups, and that we will likely meet the threshold within the next year, and so it won't necessarily apply. But in meeting the statute, we're suggesting that the attorney be a 3-year position because, one, they're very hard to find someone with healthcare law experience, and so that's that one. The CFAC determines their own, and if you'll take whatever you got there, pen or pencil, and mark 2 changes that we learned about today that CFAC has made, and they're the ones that choose their own appointments here. In place of Dan Lane, that position would be Pat McGinnis, who is currently the chair of the CFAC, and that would be a 3-year position. Then Nancy Baker is a family member of the consumer. That's recommended to be a 2-year position. Again, staggering those CFAC was the goal here. And then in place of Pat, who moved up to where Dan's name is, it would be Judy Johansson. I may be mispronouncing that. Or Judy, if I am, it could be Johansson. Johansson, okay. And she is a self-declared consumer and would be serving in that capacity if approved. Next is by statute DHS appointment, and that will technically be determined by the secretary, but we've been told that the secretary will consider our recommendation. And the recommendation is to put someone who has a length of record experience with Smokey. That would be Ed Carlton, who's not only been a past board chair here, long history on the board, but also is chair of the Council of Community Programs in Raleigh. And then there are 2 cross-county positions. One of those is required by statute to have insurance experience consistent with the level of an MCO. There have been recommendations for a couple of folks that were insurance salesmen or brokers at the local level, but the executive committee felt that a name recommended actually by our partners at Western Pilots, Craig Sappenfield. He lives in Rutherford County area, Spindale, that area, although his position is actually with the Association of County Commissioners, and it's specifically in their risk management, in other words, their insurance pools. For those of you who don't know, county commissioners can get a lot of their insurance rather than going out to private providers like Aetna or whomever. They can get insurance through the pool that the association carries, and that is part of his job. That's recommended as a 3-year position, again, because of difficulty of finding someone at that level of insurance experience as opposed to the local. Not that the local isn't good, but they're trying to meet the statute there. Dr. Jeff Heck is at Mayheck. He's the director there, Mayheck Mountain Area Health Education Center. I'm sure a lot of your communities have had dealings with them. They have physicians and residents all over western North Carolina. And that position is for healthcare management experience consistent with the level of MCO. Again, a difficult position to fill. we had to struggle long and hard to find someone who met that criteria. For the LME Provider Council, that's actually becomes the choice of the Provider Council, because they elect their own representative, essentially. Duncan Sumter, you met earlier, spoke at the beginning of the meeting, was recommended to that position. By statute, that is a non-voting position, and we tend to keep a kind of an equal mix of 1, 2, and 3-year positions. We suggested that be 1 year, simply because we don't know if the Provider Council might rotate from year to year. We don't know what that might be. And again, by statute, you can serve more than 1 term. And a hospital administrator, some of you may remember Casey Cooper, that was on this board previously. Casey's over the hospital there at the Fall Boundary in Cherokee. He was an active member on this board, and he was a member. That's recommended for a 1-year term, also non-voting. Part of our logic there was because even though we wanted someone that had some experience with mental health to get on the board, there's also a recognition that there are other hospitals in the area that deal, for example, in the ERs with mental health clients, and there could be a rotation here over time, but that's part of my. If you flip over to the backside, the first 2 positions up there, ESS director position, the recommendation there is for Joyce Edwards. Reason that was suggested for 1 year is because each county has an ESS director. 23 counties, there's plenty of opportunity to rotate that among other counties. And I know from experience with ESS myself years ago, all of those folks have a lot of knowledge that they can bring to this board and with value, regardless of what county they came from. Person with MHDDSA service experience, recommendation for Maggie Faulkner. She's a provider out of, I believe it's Hardin, South Moncton area, if I remember correctly. Mr. Vines, correct me, is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And that's recommended for a 2-year position. Then if you look down under Central, included in the 13 positions, there's a requirement for a finance position. And Rick French, our current board chair, who's also a county manager in Alexander County, is recommended for that position. The statute provides for someone with finance experience, again, at the level of an MCO. Certainly a county could be considered in that. My neighborhood place here for the county commissioner position that's included in that 13. And I will tell you, as I've told the board before, as I told the executive committee again today, I don't want to stand in the way of making this work. Anyone else, that's, I'm happy to step aside there. That's something someone would prefer. Then the other positions you see there, again, are those 8 that would bring it up to 21. 2 from the western area, 2 from the northern area, and then 4 county managers from the western Highlands area. From the western area, Ricky Green and Ron Bill from Jackson and Macon counties, respectively, are commissioners there. Larry Cox and Gene Poe from Allegheny and Ash from the northern area. Again, even though we've got Central listed here just to show you how we've got a mix of representatives from all the areas, those 2 would actually be in the 13. That maximizes our ability to get more commissioners in there, 4 county managers. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, because I believe the executive committee had suggested to that those 4 from Western Highlands would be retained in Western Highlands, and that the 4 other positions, if anyone had well, no, excuse me, there was discussion of that, but then I'll let you take it.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
At this time, I'd like to call on Chuck Vines, who is the Western Highlands Chair and also the Mitchell County Manager, to make a few comments.
Oh.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, all of you. I haven't had all of you yet. I'm hoping to do that soon, but I wanted to make a few comments going back to several months ago when the process began of us merging in with Smoky and combining the efforts of all of us there. I want to let you know just how good a staff you have, and I'm sure that each one of you has to know that. They've been terrific to work with. They've been open for any ideas. They include us in everything we've done. As I said today, I've received more information about mental health and what an LME or an MTO should be doing if we've been involved with Smoky than we ever got from our previous person. And that's as far as I'll go with that. This governance issue that we've got facing us, I'm sure that none of us sitting in here like. I personally feel that all of our counties should have representation. We should have a say-so into all of this put together. However, the legislation that was done limited us from doing that. It gave us 21 members, of which 13 of them are basically are set by the state. But they go to positions after that. And I think that all of us here know that we're in the process, and all the counties have been getting a lot of emails lately that are in the process of sending resolutions to our legislators, to the governor, to the secretary, about trying to get that governance changed. And it's not going to be done anytime soon, because you all know that we'll be back in next May sometime, maybe some in April, but most of them in May. There's only two ways it's going to change. State legislative bodies will have to change that governance for us to be able to have that representation, or as everything moves on, if we ever get to a point to where Smoky Mountain, it has to, someone else move in with them to create a larger catchment area of 1,250,000. And at that point, we start all over again. At that point, it's going to be up to every county commission board of the 23 counties to determine what the governance package will be for the organization at that time. In part of the same process, they also throw in an advisory board of county commission. No authority whatsoever. And to me, that's just not right. But it's something we have to live with. The law is the law right now. We're going to have to live with it whether we like it or whether we don't, until sometimes it can't be changed. But I do want to say that the work that has been done by everyone, we've gone through this more than one time. We've gone through it several times to look at it and make the best possible choices that could be made. And Mr. Lavin worked very hard on it. The members from Western that's on the board have been involved in that process. All the members of the executive committee from Smokies and involved in that process. And it's been a good process. It's narrowed the window down to the positions that, trying to find some of the positions that the legislators want to be on that board is difficult, just to try to find some of them that would want to serve for a period of a year, 2 years, or as much as 3 years. But I think all the efforts that have been done, and I want to thank this board for allowing Brian and his staff to come to the table with us and discuss the merger, because I think it's great. I think it's really good. I think it's going to benefit Western North Carolina as a whole in the future. And I think as you grow, you're going to have a better voice in Raleigh than we've had in the past. But I do thank them very much. And I thank y'all for your opportunity to be here and to say a few words. I appreciate that very much. And I don't envy the task that you have right now. So thank y'all. Thank you.
Okay. Discussion on this. Are there any other comments from the floor? Anybody want to?
I'm sorry.
No.
I was thinking Janice Patterson from Clay County had that.
Well, see, we had to bring the two boards together, the Western Board and the Smoky Board. They had recommendations, we had recommentions, and Janice Patterson was under, if I remember right, it was a health position. But there were other recommendations there too, and the executive committee put the two together to come up with this recommendation. There were some others, for example, with insurance. But this was ultimately the committee to make recommendations for.
I know Gene Farley was one of the recommendations.
Right, yes, he was, and that's the name that we brought to the table. They brought Craig Sapp.
And he's not merely an insurance agent,
He's a broker.
yeah, he owns several others.
Well, one other question, Mr. Chair. Yes, sir. With regard to, is there going to be an executive committee with this structure?
I'm assuming there would be under our bylaws, but we haven't been discussing that part of it.
And how is that determined?
Will be determined by that board, I assume. Again, we haven't, that's the task that we were tasked with is to work on the board composition, not the finance committee structure, not the executive committee structure, not the nominating committee, that kind of thing. First step was to get a recommendation that would go out to the counties, the board structure. We've not discussed executive.
Okay, so that's forthcoming
We have to do bylaws.
to the boards? That's still forthcoming to the boards?
That would be part of it. He said the bylaws would dictate part of that.
All right, and I appreciate Mr. Vine's comments as well on that. And speaking of with regard to the law and statute that was allowed, is calling for this structure, I want us to be reminded again that it has to be by the approval of the county commissioners in this region.
Nobody's denying that. This
Well,
will
I just want to
be
make that
recommendation.
not be not understood, because it's a hard sell. And that's all I'm going to say. Doing the straw vote and all of this is going on, it's not going to be, and we don't have any guidance, as I see it, with regard to what happens then. So, I just want to make sure that that's still somewhere to be considered. Thank you.
I want to thank Michael and everybody that's done such a good job of trying to do this, but I can't be complicit in taking county commissioners, elected officials off this board. And the fact that the elected officials have a different responsibility than the appointed officials on this is a vital part of board public interaction. We're the conduits who have to answer every 2 or 4 years to our constituents. Smokey only has to answer to the board. All the people that work for Smokey have to answer to their boss. But we have to answer to the people every 2 or 4 years. And I know it's the law, and I know that they're doing that, but that doesn't mean we have to be complicit in this. We could not do this, and if she wants to go on and override us, or the legislature in Raleigh needs to take the heat for this rather than me. And all of us who are county commissioners here who have to go back and run again and have to represent the people in our county and make sure that the mental health people's needs are met in our county. And if we're not there, there's nobody to answer to. I mean, so that's a vital link I see, and I can't go along with voting myself off this board. And it's not that I represent anything different than any of the other commissioners, or that it's turning us against each other. All the 23 commissioners on this board now should be concerned. There's no guarantee they'll ever be back on this board again. And so, we keep throwing that out, like they're going to, after we merge with somebody else, we'll get back on board. There's no guarantee of that. That'll be up to the counties and the board. So, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. I appreciate everything's been done, but this is crazy for us to just absolve ourselves of this responsibility while there's still a financial restriction. And
how many members are supposed to be on the new board? You don't have 21 here, you've got 21, but 2 of them are non-voting.
Well, that includes, 21 includes 2, in other words, there are 19 voting and 2 non-voting, so 21 total.
Chairman?
Yes.
Couple things. The DSS director, Joyce, at what county is she's from Caldwell County?
There she is.
She's right down, she's right down.
Another question is how is the current executive board appointed? Who appointed that executive board? This board? And how are those nominations? How did those nominations go?
It's in the bylaws. It's in the bylaws.
This board.
This board appointed that executive.
You know, one thing I would point out, just, and I understand perfectly what Mr. Kennedy's saying, but, Mr. Edwards, for example, one thing I think we have to keep in mind is that the one remedy that is in the statute is that if we fail to do this ourselves, the secretary can do that on our behalf. Again, I'll remind folks that you know, it's been made very clear. Brian's been in meetings at the state level. Keep forgetting the names. Is it Edwards? Okay. Pardon? The gentleman that anyway, I'll make my point, and you're going to talk about that the state has said basically you're going to get down to 4 MCO LMEs. And we're either going to go into that as a leader, getting what we want, or we go kick and screaming. And you know, again, it's just my opinion, but I think in terms of balance of making sure people understand is that the secretary has to turn around and tell us who our board is going to be. The likelihood that we're going to be a leader and get what we want out of either that board or any future LME NCO arrangement is small. And while I perfectly understand what you say, I think that there's an advocacy position there that we need to take. I just feel like that it's like that old expression, cutting off your nose to spite your thumb. Say, excuse me, I'm sorry. Listen to me from the mountains, I can't remember a good expression, but you know what I'm trying to say. I mean, we can certainly hold out for principle, but the reality is that I think the state would see it as the principle is there's a law and they're going to follow it, and we're either going to get hurt in the process or we do what we need to do now, knowing that things are going to change. Furthermore, in my opinion, if we continue to spend all of our energies on board composition as opposed to client services, our catchment area is going to suffer, our clients are going to suffer. That's my opinion, but that's not here or there. But I just felt, for those who were, whose opinion was not yet decided, that you need to balance the two ideas together and respectfully apologize.
It appears to me, though, that in our position as county commissioners, that's what our desire is, to have represent all the boards so that we can protect our concerns. If we do not know what's going on and are not on track, there's no way that we can keep up with what's happening in our county. And it appears to me, whatever we do, we're already headed down the road. None of us in the smaller counties especially are ever going to have to say this. So if we don't make a stand now, I think it's going to hurt our services in our smaller communities.
I think, and I said already, this was my understanding, a 11th hour decision, maybe 1:30 in the morning. We've already had representatives tell us they didn't know what they were voting on. So we as commissioners, Haywood's passed the resolution already. We need to let our representatives know what they voted on. And I've been in meetings like that where, if you don't read the last sentence or two, you've missed the vote. So please have your fellow commissioners write that resolution. We did it Monday night. Letting them know how we feel.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
And two, I want to bring it to the forefront. Part of that legislation says that the participating boards have to pass this. That's a part of the law. The very one we're talking about right now. And it's going to be a hard sell for me, because I can't, as chair or just a member of the board of commissioners, go and tell them how to vote. And I want just a straw vote right now. I'm telling you, it's not going to pass in Berry County. And I don't know
we have guidance that's gonna be a majority vote? Is it gonna be everybody has to agree? There's no guidance in that. And it's not, and I understand that, Mike, and I appreciate you so much, but the issue comes to it, you know, what is the guidance for us, you know, on the individual boards that are outgoing, apparently, to vote like Mr. Kennedy, you know, voting ourselves away. That's not gonna happen in Grant County.
I think in terms of, if I understand you correctly, Allison, and Dave, if I'm wrong about this, in terms of your individual counties, whatever the majority vote of your board is, would be your board position. It's kind of like
Yeah,
if you're voting to buy a new building for the county, if you've got a 5-member board and 3 say yes, then you buy it. That's the position.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm telling you now, it's gonna be unanimously against it.
Well, and again, I thought you were saying that you didn't know what the guidance
No,
was.
with the collective group of the counties, the commissioners,
And
the
in
board of
that
commissioners, they have to
case,
vote.
and again, in that case, correct me if I'm wrong, it could be thrown to the secretary. And, you know, and someone pointed out in the executive committee that the possibility exists that if, for example, just as an example, if of the county's voting, 2/3 of them voted to accept the recommendation from this body, that the secretary might very well say, that's then going to be the group that I appoint because 2/3 of your body wanted that. There's really isn't a remedy in there.
I don't think it's stated
Right.
such. There's no guidance.
But I'm saying that the remedy could be her own decision to accept, you know, the will of whatever the majority is.
The things you say about her, have you talked to the secretary about this personally? So these are assumptions you're making, and how they came to this bill, we don't know either. And we don't know if there's not some malicious intent to weaken boards across the state. Now, I'm just saying that I've got to represent all of Wetumpka County. We got 55,000 people, and it's going to be a hard sell.
I think I think the thing that we need to remember is we sat around this board as a fairly cohesive unit now for a number of years, and I respect the opinions of all of you. In fact, for example, I remember, Rick, you can remember back the very first meeting we came to Smoky when the Central Region joined Smoky. You know, Ronnie and I had a fairly testy exchange that day. Well, anyway, long and short of it is, it was very shortly thereafter that I came to respect Ronnie highly. You know, different parties, opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes, but have a lot of respect. And if you believe that these same people are going to be sitting on this board, then you know that they're going to represent your county whether you have a person on the board or not. I can tell you, if I'm one of those 21, I'm going to vote to do things that I think are in the best interest, not only McDowell, but also of Watauga, also of Hayward, and also, you know, Graham, or what have you. We've got a good group of people around this table, and I don't think we would be ill-served with any one of us being among that 21. And to think that suddenly, because you're one of 21, that you're going to forget about the other counties that aren't technically represented, I think is not as, I respect the other people enough to believe that they would represent McDowell County if I'm not wrong.
Question may be moved. I've not gotten an answer from anybody. I don't know if there is an answer. How this statute came to be, who gains from it, what was the point? Does anybody have a clue as to why this was pushed through at 3 a.m. and who benefits from it?
I mean, there was a committee that met, and again, I don't want to create more conflict, but there was a committee that met with various, and there were various constituent groups represented on the committee that met for probably months that worked on this whole area of governance that resulted in the legislation. This is 2 years old.
Oh, I know, Michael, it's not a question of not trusting these people. And the point you made about this board functioning well, worked great. This was a functioning board with high participation from all different county managers. We never had a quorum problem, at least since I've been here. So there's not, that's what I'm saying. It was a good board with all those people, and those different opinions all matter. And it's not a question of trust or not liking these people y'all come up with. It's a question of taking the control away from the people.
Yeah, a comment. I served with Mike on the Association of County Commissioners Board. And when we serve on that board, we're serving all our counties. There's not one commissioner from each county on that board. And I look at this board as the same way, the new proposed board. We are going to be representing all 23 counties. We're not just representing one. And to really, you know, I'm sorry, I respect you, but I've been on this board. I've been through Tim Trail, Nathan Miller, and now you. And there has never been, with Tim, it was a year there, I think he didn't even come. And then you got Nathan, he didn't come, and Nathan's object is to close down this board. Let's just put it honestly. I mean, I'll tell him that to his face. That's Nathan's goal, is to close down this board. We've got a law that we've got to do. We've got to present a board of 21 members. If we don't, the secretary, she still has the option of throwing out that board and appointing her own board. And if we try to create a fuss, it's going to hurt Smoky, and that's going to hurt our county schools.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. G, I respect what you said in there, but the point comes back to it again. I cannot sit here and speak for what's stated in that legislation that I can speak to my board without their majority. That's what it comes back to. And I don't know if nobody's hearing me, but what it comes to is that it has to come back to my board to make a decision about this structure. And that right there is not decided by me as a member sitting on this board.
What is your instruction? Your board is going to
I
make?
bring the information back, I already have. They can read, they can cipher, whether you don't call, they can do, make up their minds in there. And they're set in this, and it's not going to happen.
I'm assuming if all 23 county if the commissioners of all 23 counties vote against this new constitution of the board, Secretary of DHS can still appoint whatever board she wants.
For this statute.
That's right. And can turn down our recommended board as well, according to statute too. So there's no guarantee that our recommended board is going to get accepted.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. Ed talking. It's my understanding that he has to, we're actually voting for the DHHS appointment as opposed to Ed, right?
Speak up a little, they can't hear you.
As opposed to voting for Ed, we're voting for the appointment. That actually hasn't been made, is that correct?
All you're doing is saying that any of the 21 people that we vote on, all we're doing is recommending to your counties that you approve that structure, accept that with the DHHS. You're simply saying, we're going to recommend to the secretary that this is who she appoints. She technically has that appointment authority. All you would be doing with your boards is say, we agree that this person is the name we want to submit to the secretary.
So there's no guarantee Ed is on, is that correct?
These are recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, the other point, though, we're a little bit almost dead so we may have to go this route. As soon as we pass the population threshold, this don't mean anything. New board's going to be established by the people who are running the show. But we'll gap in there, it's not going to get hard, but we'll
Change
change
it.
it. That's all. Then 2 or 3 months, if we merge with a couple of them, and you're looking, they're gonna be back to it.
Any other comments or questions? Or anybody have anything else to say about this, or we want to move on to the next item, or what do you want to do this time?
Just come to the vote next meeting.
If you come to a vote any time, you can do it tonight, you can do it, we don't have a scheduled meeting in November, we're going to talk about that later, about scheduling a meeting in November, but I think we didn't have one.
If I had to vote now, it's instructed by my
Yeah.
board, I'd have to vote no. I'd like to discuss it with you one more time.
Sir, I can hear you.
If it came up now, as instructed by my board, I would have to vote no. With no disrespect to this board or any of the names on this list. A little disrespect for the people in Raleigh. But I'd like to have another time to negotiate with them one more time.
And did I hear from Ronnie that they're supposed to be discussing this again this evening?
I believe so, they've talked about it numerous times.
Yeah, I know, I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm just wondering if waiting until the next meeting to vote on it might be a way to help.
I think Ronnie told us that it would be May or even April, or whatever, the legislature came back or maybe something.
Unless the Secretary of Government does away with what our resolution says.
Right.
Or recognize our numbers being within a margin of error in the census margin. A couple options.
Mr. Chair, can I bring up point of order?
Yes, ma'am.
I recommend that you go ahead and vote on the slate of nominations tonight. That doesn't mean that your board has approved it. It just means that it's out there for your board to debate later on. And your board can vote later on to approve or not approve the nominations. This is simply a nomination that this is sort of a clearinghouse. We've used this, the committee was put together to put this slate out there for you to nominate. Once it's nominated, it doesn't mean a doggone thing. It's just a nomination. But that gives your board the opportunity to vote it up or vote it down. If we don't put it out there as a nomination tonight, it's really not before your board because we haven't taken any action on it. So the point of order is we ought to take action on it. Even if you're against it, I would suggest voting on it as a slate and then take what action your county commission needs to take afterwards. Otherwise, your county commission has nothing for it to consider. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to get across to you?
I make a motion that we accept the list of suggested members for the new board and it be presented to each individual board of county commissioners.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
I would like to suggest that,
Larry Cox, second.
that as far as the slate is concerned, that we raise hands.
I will.
Second point of order, is this a vote for county commissioners only?
This is for
For board members or full board? And it does not bind you at your local county commissioner level. You can go right back to your county commission and vote against.
Are you saying that if we vote this and the Secretary approves it, we have another chance?
No, this is just a nomination. This board has no authority.
To the Secretary.
This board has no authority whatsoever to appoint this board. It's just a body that has been able to put these names on a piece of paper and suggest this is a nomination.
So the motion is to recommend this slate of, this is a nomination to go to all counties. That's what this is, a recommendation to all counties, so like on commissions.
Mr. Chair, so if we vote this down tonight, then it will not go to the commission boards, is that correct?
We won't have recommendations.
What it means is that you would not have a nomination coming from the Smoky Mountain Board of Directors. Clearly, if you wanted to, as a county, do that, later on you could, but it would be a real haphazard way of doing it. You may never take action, you may never even get to the agenda. In which case, you're basically just asking the secretary to step in and do whatever they want to do. So, to me, it would behoove you to at least put it out there for debate on the board as opposed to it just sitting there and nothing happening. Because here's, if you go back to the statute, it says, and I'm going to quote this, if the board or boards fail to comply with the requirements of subsection B, that's what Michael Lavender has put before you. The secretary shall appoint the unrepresented category. So at least this gives your board an opportunity to discuss it and vote on it tonight, take it back to the county commission.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. With this, I'm hearing two different things, you know, with the issue of the boards, commissions voting for the structure, the restructuring matter before this board. And now we're speaking about that of a nomination, list of nominations. And, you know, one vote, you know, on this would be consent to that. Is that not right?
No.
You're telling me that I would have to go, and if we do not vote this in tonight, on this list of nominees, is that would be in violation of the law?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
But
as
then
a practical,
the secretary could then
as a practical matter, at some point in time, the secretary is going to say, have you voted on this or not?
On what?
On who you're going to nominate to be on this new board. So you appoint, your commission is going to appoint that. This board has no authority. We're just, like I said, clearing house. We just got some names on that paper. Nomination.
One point I'd like to make before we vote this, that is the fact that if we ever hope to merge with the other LMEs to reach that 1.250 threshold regime, we need to get our stuff together here. They're looking at us. They don't have to come this month. They don't have to. But there's going to be four LEDs in this country. It's going to happen real quick. So, let's use that whole thought.
Yes, sir. From what I understand, there's a good chance this will be voted down tonight. I would recommend that we table this until next meeting, until we can get word whether or not that the secretary might reconsider leaving this current board in place.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a remedy for that. If Ms. Poe and Mr. Cox would amend their recommendation, you can simply say, in the event that the secretary, in the event that the secretary does waive the requirement, then it becomes a moot point. In other words, this will be our slate of nominees unless we're told that we could have 30 members or 35 or whatever. That would be an easy remedy for that, so that we don't drag it on another month to do that. In other words, you're kind of creating a situation in the alternative.
Is that satisfy what you?
It was an attempt to avoid a no vote is what it was an attempt to do. So I can hire.
All right, I know this is a big thing, so I want to make sure everybody has time to ask their questions. We can thoroughly discuss this. Are there any more questions or comments before we vote? Jay?
If there's a motion to table, it takes precedence over the previous motion.
The motion to table hadn't had a second.
That has second, so it fails.
Okay, he just has a second. He had a second on the motion to table.
We have to vote on the motion to table.
Okay, does everybody understand? Okay, the motion is to table this action.
This was a deadline on this. When does it have to be done?
Yeah, it does. What's the deadline? Explain the deadline.
The deadline is associated with a special piece of legislation that was granted, given all of the activity around the transition. And our deadline is to have a new board in place, constituted within 30 days of the time of the secretary approving the consolidation agreement. I spoke to Dave Richards today, specifically asked him about this, and he told me that he expected the secretary would sign next week. So we have 30 days from sometime next week theoretically to have the board constituted.
But we don't meet in November, do we? We're going to schedule a meeting, but don't
Okay.
need to do that. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
ma'am.
point of order. I understand that if there is a motion and a second on the floor, that motion has to be voted on before any other motion is voted on. That's what our commission board rules operate on.
Okay, hold on, check it out.
That's the way we will operate.
Robert's Rules of Order states that first and second on motion, a motion to table with a second. If you make the motion to table, you set a time for the original motion vote to take place.
The original motion is taken off.
Set a time.
Jay's just taking that out, this is give him a chance to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I just food for thought. We really need to hear from our CEO on the next item, what it is.
I know, we still have a lot
I
of
don't
items.
have a lot of, have a lot of, learn on what we're doing.
I understand, so we're, right?
We approved it and
Good job.
Yes, we approved the agenda, so that's.
We don't have a lot of time.
Did y'all see that play at second base last month?
Robert's Rules of Order. Well,
Hold on, everybody, let's listen to this.
A motion may not be defeated by adopting a motion to table. Specifically in terms of comments, this is a common violation of fair procedure. Such a motion is not in order because it would permit the debate to be suppressed by a majority vote. And
Okay, I stand corrected, you're right. Chief.
so
That's in Robert, she's reading from Robert's rules and it's not in.
The motion
You
can
can-
be an opposite motion.
you can raise an objection to consideration of the question, which is undebatable, and it can suppress the main question, but that is required by a 2/3 vote.
Okay, Jay, so the motion on the floor is the motion to recommend back to Judy's motion, correct? Is that correct? I want to make sure we all understand what we're going to be voting on, so, is that right? Okay, does everybody understand?
Let's restate that again.
Okay, Judy, you want to restate your motion? All right. You want to restate the motion, Jill?
She stated, Ms. Judy Poe made a motion that this board accept the suggested list of members for the new reconstituted board to be presented to each individual county board. Is that correct?
And if we don't want that if the secretary made, Michael, if the secretary made this would be,
In other words, if the secretary weighs the 21-member composition to allow us to determine the structure, that we can proceed in that fashion as opposed to this slate of nominees. While I'm mentioning, Mr. Chair, again, I apologize for the nature of this, but if you see back, I think I said that Pat McGinnis was in the chair role. It's a similar role, but it's still a 3-year position. And Judy Johansson, still a 1-year position as a chair designee.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Okay, everybody, are we ready?
I don't, go ahead.
I haven't heard the motion, I don't know, I don't have clarity on.
I don't think you can amend the motion without a motion to amend. I mean,
Then you have to vote on it anyway.
yeah.
You have to vote on that motion, and then you have to make an amendment to it.
What he's stating is that they're amending their motion based on what Michael was suggesting to them, or based on what.
I'd just like to hear the motion as presented. The original, and there sounds like there was some amendment in regards to secretary.
Okay, you want to read the original again?
Ms. Judy Poe made a motion to accept the list of recommended members for the new reconstituted board. Well, she said the new board, and be presented to be each individual board. County commissioners. Each individual.
So that's the, okay, that's the motion that's on the floor. Everybody understand? Okay, I'm gonna ask you, anybody have any more questions? I'm gonna ask you to raise your hands, okay, so we can do this. Okay, everybody in favor of the motion, raise your right hand.
We have proxies.
Okay.
Goes to you.
I think Steve Little gave you his.
So that's 10.
Joyce Edwards has Michael LaRose. That's 11. Janice Patterson, Dan Clamory. Ronnie Bill gave this to Judy Poe.
So how many is that?
12.
12. Okay, that's 12 in favor. Now, those opposed, raise your right hand. Right.
Joyce. Dan McClamory's, so he's got
Two.
That's 2. That's
That's 11. Right? Ronnie's went to Judy's, which was a yes.
So there's 23 people here. There's 12 yes votes and 11 no votes. Is that right? ladies?
That's correct, that's what I understand.
So it's, make sure it's just some votes.
And you want to vote again?
Yeah, let's, I hate to do this.
Like
to you.
Chicago.
Yeah. Let's raise our, let's make sure we're
Really
right.
vote
Everybody
on?
raise your hand that was in favor of it. And let's do that one more time. Everybody in favor of it. Let's do it one more time.
With your proxy hand?
Yeah, well, okay, with your proxy
Yeah,
hand. Okay.
that would work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12? Is that what you have, Jay?
12.
All right, those opposed, raise your hand. Is that what? You got 12 in favor, 11 opposed? Yes. Okay, so the motion carries 12 to 11. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'll I'll correct the names that we hand wrote in and send that to Jill so that it's clear when she sends that to the county that it's the right person.
Okay, next item is the CEO report. Brian?
Well, given the hour and the energy that's been expended in a difficult night, let me ask you, what would be helpful for you to understand about this initiative? Again, the background, just to catch people up, is that it has become almost a requirement for us to continue doing what we're doing in the way we are. And that is managing the services that we manage in the way we do it. That in order for us to continue to do that, as part of the governor's plan for Medicaid reform, that we would have to reduce our numbers from 10 to 4. And in looking at the state of North Carolina, there's a certain set of assumptions that are operating that put certain MCOs grouped with other MCOs. Okay? Nobody is backing down on this notion that we need to reduce our numbers. So we have created, we are in the process of creating what we call the Western region. That is, and now because there is no more Western Highlands, so when we speak about smoking now, we're talking about a 23-county region. In combination with partners, behavioral health, management, and Centerpoint, that would create a 35-county region. I have been meeting with my colleagues from those NCOs for a couple of months. We've now had our senior staffs begin meeting and gone down the road of looking for areas where we could collaborate. And we have a group of, I guess, 10 or 11 sort of, we think of them as business process areas where we're looking for low-hanging fruit, where we can find better ways to operate either individually, choosing one to do the activities of the three, ultimately, because this is going to have to result in a merger all across the state of these different groups. There really isn't another structure in North Carolina, given the law, that allows for anything else to work, essentially to hold a contract. So it's a very difficult process to go through. And I'll just stop there. What is important for you to know about this at this point? At the executive committee meeting, we had a lot of discussion, and what I asked is for a group to represent this board for me to be able to work with in relationship to these other MCOs and their boards.
What kind of timetable do you see, Brian?
The secretary is required to submit a report to the General Assembly. I think it's April 14th. And at that time, I think she will need to give some indication of her desire to see us continue on in some way like we are. So that there isn't, and I spoke to Dave Richard about this point blank today. I said, hey, boards and the MCOs are going to have a goal line. We're going to have to know what we have to get done by when in order to do this. And I'll give you a great example, separate from what you're wondering in your own minds. Business decisions are going to need to be made. We have to scale certain parts of our operations to a much higher level just in relationship to what we've done with Western, and that's IT. If nothing was going on around anything else other than us just going down the road, doing this merger that we've accomplished, we'd be ready to spend really millions of dollars in enhancements that need to be made. Well, should we do that, or should we pool our investment with these other organizations towards creating one entity and one way of doing things and one capital investment? It's that kind of thing. You get there really in a hurry without knowing when something like that would need to occur. and let's just say merger, because that's really what this boils down to. And, there's a lot of difficulty people have with using that term, but I think we should get used to it. When would that need to occur? Is that going to be in a year? Is that going to be in 2 years? What would have to be in place in March? What would have to be in place in June? When the General Assembly leaves, anything the Secretary is going to do has to be approved by the General Assembly. None of this is going to happen without their approval. And what the Secretary is going to be seeking is that approval through a plan she submits. So you can imagine in the legislative session that will be upcoming in the spring, that will be a very intensive period. And I wish I could offer you a better answer than that. I continue to seek that information.
Other questions?
To help you, begin to think about this, maybe sitting around here, you're all proud of the effort, and I really appreciate Mr. Vine's comments tonight. Come to have a lot of respect for him over the last couple of months, working with him and the other board members. You may feel very proud of what we've accomplished, and I hope you do, because it is something to be very proud of. And in these other MCOs, there's board meetings where they're feeling very, very proud of their accomplishments as well. So it's not as if there is a clear path to who will be in a leadership position in relationship to any of this. That all remains to be seen. Is there some criteria that are going to be used, or there's some evaluation? None at this time. So I just wouldn't want anyone to leave here assuming that we're just going to be a leader, a follower, somewhere in the middle. All that remains to be seen.
I think who's this board to take whatever action needed to let our MCO can move forward to merge with these other 2 or 3 MCOs that might join us, at least explore it. And let's get over that hump so we can do a lot of things. So the new board, move forward and be a leader in the state. That's what we've got to do.
Well, that process is moving forward on the kind of the organizational level, and just to give you some idea, kind of where this is getting to, there's going to be a facilitated meeting between the CEOs next week to really get into the leadership questions. And then shortly after that, be some representation from each of the boards, along with the CEOs that begin meeting. So this is happening now, is really what I'm saying to you. And we have not probably had, maybe we haven't had sufficient discussion about something that is very, very significant to the future of 23 counties in western North Carolina.
I don't have any problem with you're going to have with working towards that, and we need a motion to support you on that. You're asking for a committee, we don't even know if we'll be on this board anymore, so it's hard to be behind that. But like I say, I have no problem with what's make it down. Y'all done a great job. That's not my main issue. My main issue is with the state and how to try to get them.
I just don't want Smokey to get caught in the crossfire. And I have to say, it's a very challenging position. I appreciate everybody's, concerns with this. In the meantime, the world is going on in a big hurry.
Mr. Chair, just to move things on, to assist in what he's talking about, I'd make the motion that we want the executive committee and any other members who might want to be on the committee to assist Brian with whatever transition toward additional merger that we might need.
I just like that.
Okay, we got a motion in a second. Any discussion?
All in favor, everybody hear the motion? All in favor?
simply saying that the executive committee plus anybody else that wants to join them be on the committee to help with transition issues toward future mergers.
Any other board members?
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
You're all looking for comment. But not if I'm not a board member. I don't get a voice, I can sit and listen and talk comment. I understand this. There's a difference. So I'm sitting as a voting board member and not, that was formed for me.
Mr. Chair, I have one comment. You know, I've listened to the growth side of things. There's a tremendous business plan. I'm hearing a lot about the business plan, expansion and management consolidation. I just hope that also with the flourishing of this plan, business-wise, is that the services side is not going to lag. I think it's too much too soon. And I have some insight into folks waiting for those innovation grants. I understand there's about a number of 280 waiting. And, you know, I try to do my homework, and I no wise want to appear to be anti-board or anything else, but that remains to be seen. But the point is, I just hope that the business model is well and good. And I listen to what Mr. Rice has said continually. And I know it's pretty much on principle and it's pretty much based on, what is your aim as a mental health service provider and making sure that the services get provided. A lot of power is coming into this place, into this MCO idea. And this really struck me when I was in a meeting this week. And there were some Smoky Mountain Center staff there, and they introduced themselves as the MCO, the insurance company. And that was how it was. It's an insurance company deciding who will, who will not. And I imagine the actuaries will be, in play too. But I hope, because I've got about 12, 13 months left in public service as far as I know, is that this board, with the expansion, with a tremendous business plan, is that the services will follow. And that's maybe already doing it. I've been called to check on that a lot. But when you're out there where the action is, there are those that are still falling through the cracks. And I know that's your ambition, your goal is to get as many of those as you can. And I appreciate this board. I appreciate all the work that's been done. And I just hope that any board, subsequent board, will keep that in focus. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
We did submit we want to call it a merger agreement or consolidation agreement. That was submitted to the secretary. They had some questions about, I think, really semantics, the notion of new consolidated entity merger. It's confusing again because 122C, the language there talks about merger, but legally that has probably a different meaning than what is intended in the general statute. So to make a long story short, I guess I filed an affidavit just restating what we had done. It was under my signature, and apparently that cleared things up. So, and again, I did mention I spoke with Dave this morning, Dave Richard, the division director, and he suspected that the secretary would sign that agreement next week. And I guess technically that's when it's official, even though both boards executed that. So that's a great milestone. I wish we were in a better mood to celebrate that. We've done something no one else has done, and I would like to think we did it in a style that you'll all be proud of. Yeah. Vantage point. Well, thanks to Mr. Rice, he's keeping us focused on people. And believe it or not, that's still what I think about, every day. I find a way to remind myself that that's what this really is all about. And is when I ran an agency in New York before I moved here. Very similar kind of situation where boards end up talking a lot about administration, and money, and management, and all the things kind of behind the scenes to make that service delivery happen. Similar kind of conversation, people say, you know, we ought to think more about the people we're serving. So I came up with this idea, each month we have this thing called a Vantage Point, which is kind of from the perspective of a client. So we've reinvented it here with Smokey, thanks to some urging from Mr. Rice, and I think it's a great idea. So each month, you know, we'll have this as an agenda item where we really talk about a client or a family and how we have interacted or how our providers interacted with them in some kind of way that's important to talk about. So, Regina, how are we doing this evening?
Julia, who's been very involved representing the staff, who was able to create a wonderful situation for a person who will tell a story. So I'll turn it to Julia.
Come over here so I don't have my back to anyone. Thank you. I'm Julie Sinclair, and I'm the Senior Director of Quality and Integrity Operations. I'm going to tell you about critical case staffings, and hopefully this will renew your confirmation that we are more than just an insurance company, that we really do serve people, and Mr. Rice, that we're not going to forget the individuals or the services. Critical case staffings come to our attention through many venues, and they are cases that are complicated or in imminent risk of some kind of change that we feel might be detrimental to the individual. And we have a core group of people. Dr. Martin is one of those, I am one of those, our IDD clinical director is one of those. We save at least 4 to 5, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. every Thursday for any cases that might come up to talk about how we can get them the services they need. So we have a core group of individuals with some ad hoc individuals, and when a case comes up, say a care coordinator might bring us a case, and they do a case presentation on the phone or in person, and they present the case, and what our goal is person-centered, clinically appropriate solution. And I'm going to tell you about a story that had it's a very exciting story to me, and it had a very person-centered, very clinically appropriate, surprising, successful end for us. We had an individual who was in an institutional level of care that we call intermediate care facility, ICF. That care facility wrote the family of this loved one and said, we need to discharge your loved one because he needs a higher level of care. He needs one-on-one attention, and we have to discharge him. That individual had lived in that facility for 10.5 years, and the family was disturbed because they felt that their loved one was being displaced from his home. So the family had a hard time looking at this and went to some statewide advocacy agencies, and therefore Smokey got involved in helping the family and the facility plan for the next steps for this loved one. So the two opposing views, the facility had to discharge, the family didn't want to move the individual, and finally the facility, because of their true concerns for the health and safety of the individual and the staff, had to give a firm discharge date. So Smokey worked with the family to help them identify that they really did need to take a next step and move their loved one. Within the course of these critical case staffings, provider network was involved, Dr. Martin, our chief medical officer, care coordinators, the community collaboration department, care management department, even DMA participated in the critical case staffing. And throughout the process, Smokey staff worked with the facility staff and with the individual's family to move toward the outcome that would be the best case scenario for this individual. What we thought at the beginning was that we were moving toward another institutional level of care. But what happened in this situation is that the individual was moved to an alternative family living home, so a home with a family, a lower level of care in a community that was actually closer to home, to the family. All the other options that were institutional in nature were further away from the family. So the individual is in a lower level of care, closer to home, with more frequent family visits, and he is happy and thriving in his setting. So that is the outcome, and the process for this individual took 45 days. There were 12 individuals involved, 12 smoking staff members involved in the initial call that started this process. 5 of those staff members remained constant throughout the critical case staffing process. We had a minimum of 1 teleconference call a week. We contacted 35 agencies to try to locate placement for this individual, and we had over 60 contacts with each other as staff, the facility, and the family. And that's what we can do, and that's why we're here. That's why you are here, letting smoking continue our work as an MCO. Thank you for letting me present this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, moving on to the Finance Committee report. Ed?
Yes, I just wanted to give a brief update on the budget revisions that were in the package. Through September, at the end of September, Smoky's operating budget was $161.2 million. In October, we consolidated the 8 counties in, which resulted in adding $144 million to our budget. That $144 million was the increase in our revenue and expenditures for the next 9 months, October through the end of June. So Smoky now has a current operating budget of $305 million. Included in those budget revisions was an addition of $408,000 that was a new allocation from the Division of Mental Health that was for the 23 counties, and that funding is typically referred to as bridge funding. And that's funding that pays providers of adult care group homes to continue to provide services to consumers who no longer qualify for personal care. That was an increase to the 23 counties of $408,000. We also, not reflected in the budget amendments because we were just notified, we are receiving a decrease in administrative funding from the Division of Mental Health. It's a combination of the 23 counties again, $417,000, so that will be reflected in the next round of budget amendments. Again, our current budget is $305 million. So Ed, I'm just going to turn it back to you.
Each of you have a copy of this in your package, the Finance Committee table here right there. We approved our agenda, we approved our minutes from the September 26th meeting. We approved item number 4, which was September 23rd financial reports, and we approved the budget amendments that you just voted on here. I'll offer to this board a motion to approve the action of the Finance Committee this day.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Larry second. That's fine. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. We have consent agenda. We need to add one item to the consent agenda. You would all receive the MCO data comparison. That needs to be item number 5 on the consent agenda. Also, I need to call on Jenny for clarification of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. French. I'm speaking on behalf of Pat McGinnis, and this is a minor clarification, but it's important to Pat. This is on page 2, section E, the third line. It says has been nominated. I'd like to offer a substitution for those 3 words. The substitution is currently serves as the vice chair of PAMI, and as such would be considered for nomination for the chair role in December 2013.
Is there a motion to accept that amendment to the minutes and the other 4 or 5 items on the consent agenda? There's a motion, who seconded that? All in favor of that motion, by consent, motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Our next meeting is November 21st. Check your calendars, that's the date we talked about, November 21st.
Yeah, that's a different rotation, so everybody be sure you make a special note of that. That was normal rotation of the board cycle.
Yeah, it'll be here at this location. Also, reminder that December 11th, 13th is the council meeting in Pinehurst. That's December 11th to 13th. And also dinner is available right after the meeting, so right out there, just one there over. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All right.